Okay, stay with me. This is going to be blending two topics together that I've discussed, Indigenous rights, Indigenous history, all of this, plus patriarchy, feminism, and trying to merge those two conversations. It's a very nuanced and layered topic, so bear with me. I started making content about fitness because I'm a personal trainer, and that's how I was trying to gain clients online, was making fitness content. But I kept coming up against the same thing over and over again. Misogynistic men, so men who hate women, they inherently hate women. Like what women say, what women do, how women talk, how they dress. These men hate women. They like to sleep with women, but they do not like women. I kept coming up with them in my comments, so much so there was one point in time where men were dissecting my body so much it was in the Scottish Sun. And then it was in the UK Sun as well, because the hate comments were so bad, and it went on for months. And through that, I started to learn more about feminism, because I was like, why is it that I'm technically fitting into the box of what I was told I'm supposed to be? Because I used to be overweight. Now I'm, skinny and fit, and in my opinion, fit the category of what was supposed to be stereotypically attractive. I'm like, why am I getting the most amount of hate comments now and not when I was fat? I started consuming more content from feminists, and specifically from Black women in the United States, because those women are light years ahead in conversation of patriarchy and feminism and generational trauma. Like, those conversations are so far ahead of what I've ever seen anybody who's in Canada, specifically dealing with Indigenous relations. I feel like when we talk about intersectionality, we talk about Black women a lot, and rightfully so, but I also feel like in Canada there's like an intersect there where Indigenous people are largely left out of the conversation. So from the time that men are born in Canada, in the United States, in most societies, because British colonization has touched majority of the world, and that belief system that they had, that they made in writing the Indian Act. Okay, so patriarchy is the belief that men are better, and then there's this extra layer of white men are better. And we see that in Canada, where they took away the right for Indigenous people to vote unless they gave up their Indian status. And they said that they felt like they didn't want to give the right to vote to people of color. So the definition of a person in Canada was any person who is not an Indian. And they said that they did not want to give that right to vote because it would take away from the rights of white men. That rights of white men part is in every law, legislation, and that is systemic. It's in the policing of people. It's in how we make media. So that messaging is throughout everything. Think of like, oh, she's running like a girl, or like run like a girl. That inherently is misogynistic. It's placing women below men. To run like a man means more. To run like a woman means less. And it's that same dehumanization that Indigenous people or people of color get. Example, referring to Indigenous people as savages, as retards, for viewing the world differently than their white counterparts. So it's not that every single person that you come across is like, every white man is an inherent misogynist, but they do get fed the entirety of their lives from every like social interaction. Like my son is 6. He was watching a cartoon, and he paused it, and he came into my room, and he goes, "Are boys better than girls?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Are boys better than girls?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, my TV show just said that boys are better than girls, and I'm wondering if that's true." And I was like, "Well, what do you think?" And we got into it, we had a conversation about it, but you have to understand that these messages start in cartoon shows. They start in movies. Think of every single movie where there's a man who pines after a woman who is better than in some way. She's more attractive. She's, up here. Usually it's more attractive. Usually that's the only way as a woman you're considered better than a man, is if you're somehow more attractive than him. It doesn't matter if you make more money. It doesn't matter. And that's the dehumanization of women. It's the only thing that matters is how good you look. And you'll see it all the time in dating content that men will say, I don't care what you do for work. I don't care what your hobbies are. I don't care about this, but they care about your pant size. And that is because those men don't care about women as a person. They just want the physical outside to look a way that holds status. And that's why in movies we see this nerdy, weird guy who isn't, like, a lot of the times isn't even nice, doesn't know anything about her, has never had a conversation with her. Think about Love at First Sight. It's this concept of like, I saw her and I wanted her, so she's supposed to be with me. That mentality is subconsciously and consciously taught to boys from the time they are little. It's also, this conversation leads into, the default is always white. Like, think of how many times people have conversations of like, oh, I was doing this and this girl came up to me, and then randomly they'll add in the descriptor, oh, this black woman came up to me. And it's like, was it relevant to the conversation, or were you just trying to describe that it wasn't the automatic neutral in your brain default? Because it's very rare you'll hear, oh, this white girl came up to me. It's only when it's a person of color, because it's always assumed that the default is white. And again, it's not that every white person is racist. It's just, unless you're willing to hear that and not get defensive and go, not me, blah, 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 blah. And like, there are some people who feel like, and this is like where white supremacy comes in. There's people who feel like, yes, white people are better and they should be the default. And those people are upset that that is no longer the case. But they can't come outright and say that all of the time, because they know that there would be repercussions for that, because majority of people, and that's their whole issue, is that majority of people have friends who are people of color. They have relatives who are people of color. They are people of color, but you can't tell because they're white. Presenting. And even there, like, the term used to be white passing because it was good to look like a white person. It meant something. And a woman of color actually commented, and she said it shouldn't be white passing, it should be white presenting. Like, I present as a white person, but that doesn't mean I'm inherently a white person. Same with passing, you're trying to look like. And people of color are not immune to these systems because they get the same messaging. You know, my ex-husband is Asian, and do you know how many times we would be somewhere and somebody would ask about where he was from or our history, and I would say, oh, I'm Indigenous, and be like, no, you aren't. Or in like private, he'd tell me that I'm not Indigenous, because as a person of color, he knew that there was status being perceived with being with a white woman. He used to say, I got a white woman. And I've heard this multiple times from other people, like other men of color, that there's status in getting a white woman, in walking outside and being seen with a white woman. And then there's even layers to that on their attractiveness. And when men talk about women, they even go into like, oh, like, she has the nicest lips and they're real. She didn't even have to get filler. Like, oh, she's so attractive and she doesn't even have to wear makeup. Because again, there's this hierarchy of attractiveness when discussing women, because we've objectified them so much in society. That we now have layers of like, yes, she's pretty, but she's naturally pretty. Yes, she's pretty, but she didn't have any surgery. She's better than the one that did. And the standard of whiteness goes beyond just white people. It goes into people of color. How, like, Asian people will get double eyelid surgery, because double eyelids are considered more attractive. And that's an eyelid that majority white people have, or that is a feature on most white people. There's been studies. If a woman speaks in a room, she's being perceived as speaking more. If there's a group of people and there's 3 women and 7 men, it's actually perceived that there's more women taking up more. Like, the men in the room perceive it as they take up more than half. And that is patriarchy, that is that condition, because they also did not want women. They did not view women as equals. And that's why they also had a large issue with Indigenous culture, because women were viewed as equal. They were viewed as just as important. They've even tried to rewrite history that women didn't hunt at all, that they only farmed. And they did that, or gathered, and they did that as a way, again, to breed in this patriarchal, misogynistic culture into white people. Because if white people never question the systems, they just view it as the way things are.